Welcome to Super Cub Project Part 2. Now, I just wanted to do a quick recap on the intent of this project, and that is to take a plane that I got for nothing and as inexpensively as possible get it into the air. And I'm hoping that the changes I make to this plane will allow it to perform much better than it did when it was a stock 3-channel plane. And I'm hoping to use this in a field that's very near my house that has a very small area for takeoff and landing. There's lots of sky to fly, but very little space to take off and land. And I'm going to be trying to get to a point where I can take this plane down there and have some fun with it. So with that, the next thing I wanted to cover off briefly is that I realized when I was putting this together, it's going to sound very much like a commercial and an endorsement for Hobby King products. And that's not the intent. The intent is to do this as cheaply as possible, and I know of no other place to go for parts that hopefully will work as well as they're supposed to and at such a low price. So by comparison, I've got another build that's going to be coming up after this with an E-Flite Beaver, and the parts that I've got selected for it do not include any Hobby King parts, and that's not for any particular reason, but I've chosen to go with Castle and High Tech and all of the brands that you're familiar with. So again, this is not a commercial for Hobby King, and it's simply an inexpensive way to try and have some fun with this plane and to satisfy my curiosity about whether $2.69 servos and $20 ESCs are fit for purpose. I just wanted to take this quick opportunity to address some comments made by one of the viewers to the YouTube site, and that is that he felt that the motor was mounted far too high. And I think, with all due respect, it's just an optical illusion, because this motor doesn't have that big bulky gearbox that's attached to the stock brushed motor. And if you remember back to the shots from the front with the cowl, you'll see that the prop shaft exits the cowl dead center where the previous one did. So I have no concerns there whatsoever. The other comment was that the motor might be far too large for this application, and again, we'll just have to wait and see. I think it'll be just fine. This is a fairly popular engine or motor swap, and I think it's going to give me what I need, which is a good climb rate and hopefully the ability to take off in a very short space. And I don't think it's crazy powered at all. I think you could throw a much bigger motor in this if you really chose to, but I think it's going to be the right one, and time will tell. We'll see on the maiden whether this was the right choice or not. So before we get into the mounting of the ESC, I just thought I'd like to take another look at the front end of this plane and to look at the amount of cooling that's made available by the air inlets in the cowl. Now there's a lot of cooling here that I wish some of my other planes could take advantage of, and it's because of that I chose to go with a mounting location for the ESC that's within the cowl and underneath the motor. And if you take a peek through the holes here, you can see that's exactly where the ESC is mounted. So it's going to benefit from all of the air that's going to come in through all of these holes, and I think it's going to be a far better solution in terms of treating the ESC well than cluttering up the fuse with it and or gouging out some foam to make room for it, much like takes place in some of my Park Zone planes like the Trojan and the Wildcat, where the ESC is wedged into the foam. Well, here's the ESC in what is hopefully its final resting place. Aside from any CG issues that crop up, I think I'm going to be fine with this location, and as we've discussed, I really like the location in terms of the cooling that it'll receive from the openings in the cowl. So this is just mocked up right now. All I did is I took a piece of Lexan and I used the bottom two mounting screws off of the motor mount, attached the Lexan, and then I zip tied for now the ESC to that piece of Lexan, and it fits just fine underneath the cowl. It couldn't be better, actually. And I used the hole where the original motor wires extended back into the fuse to run the receiver wire from the ESC. And as far as the battery wires are concerned, you can see that I've poked a hole from the cowl area here back into the fuse, and I've just fished the battery wires back through there to get near the battery compartment. So I'm kind of hoping that the combination of the motor mount, and the ESC in terms of weight isn't very much different from what we had with the stock setup with the stock brushed motor and the motor mount and gearbox. So you can see this is where the wires that I talked about, the battery wires, enter the fuse and heading toward the battery compartment. And I'm very happy with the way that turned out. It was just very easy to punch a hole. It slid right along the edge of the fuse there, and it was a real easy way to get the wires where they need to be. This is a look at the battery box, and all I did was remove some of the ribbing to allow the LiPo battery to be installed vertically up through the hatch. I don't want to have to remove the wing to fool around with batteries and things like that, so this is going to work very well. You can see where the battery wires will go down through the battery box, and we'll make the connection from underneath, shut the door, and we're good to go. So here are two of the infamous $2.69 servos. So they're in, they're good to go. They've been hooked up to the radio. They work the control surfaces just fine, and so far so good. So I'm really happy about the progress. This is just a little modification that I found on the internet. It's a popsicle stick actually, and it was just shaped to fit the contour of the fuse. And I'm told, not having had a Super Cub before, but when they land hard or even crash, that the wing gets shoved back into that foam area on the top of the fuse, and the popsicle stick is apparently the cure for that. So for the 5 minutes it took to do it, I think it was a worthwhile investment in terms of preventive maintenance. So quick and easy tip there, and we'll see how it works. Hopefully I won't have to put it to the test with any hard landings. The next challenge is going to be to make the modifications to the wing, and I just thought I'd show you this picture now as a before shot, and you can see the amount of dehedral that's left in the wing. I did try and flatten it out a little bit using some gentle heat and some weight, and I got a little bit out, but there's still a long way to go. So the wing is going to benefit hopefully from a 5.5 millimeter carbon fiber tube that will be used as a spar inserted on the top of the wing. And then of course we're going to be getting into cutting out the ailerons and the flaps and installing the 4 servos. Okay, just a quick comment on closing. I just wanted to make sure that no one was left with the impression that I'm taking credit for any of the ideas used in this project. I will be making reference in the last video in this series to the websites that I visited where I've learned this and that. I've taken a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and stirred it all up, and the end result is going to hopefully result in a great maiden flight on this little plane. So with that, I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.